Okay, so welcome to our FYE Fostering Mental and Emotional Health Workshop. We're happy to have with us today Andrew Rodriguez. Andrew is actually a Valley Forge grad back in 2007. He went on for a master's in counseling.
You could just say counseling.
Yeah. And he's also been one of our campus counselors here for many years as well. So he's been working with students right here on our campus. All right, so let's just welcome him.
All right, let's start with some prayer real quick. Lord, thank you so much for this morning. Thank you for every student that is here, that you've called to be here at this university, and whether here or online even. So Lord, we just pray that their whole time here will be a time of building them up and of mental, emotional, spiritual growth and social growth. So Lord, may they acquire the skills they need to get the most out of their time here as well. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so first I'd like to just go over a little bit about what the Health and Wellness Center offers when it comes to counseling. So we haven't always had counseling services on campus. Back when I was a student here, we didn't have any campus counselors at all. And so what I did was I started a support group for guys, and so I had to blaze a little bit of a trail for a few years before where they actually offered counseling on campus. So it's a real blessing that they even offer counseling. Now, the counselors aren't technically employees of the school. We're independent contractors. So we have our own fees. The standard fee is $40 per session, which is 50 minutes long. The school, though, does have a certain amount of funds allocated in case students need some assistance. So usually they'll pay a portion and then you pay a portion. That's usually how it works. So if you want to get started with counseling, then there's two ways you can do it, sort of. You can go straight to the Health and Wellness Center and speak to Nurse Lauren, and she'll give you some basics, she'll give you some basic information, just demographics, and then she'll forward your information to me, and I contact you to get us set up for your first appointment. She's also the one you need to speak to if you want to use any of the scholarship funding from the school. So she's got the money, so you got to talk to her about that, not me. Otherwise, you're stuck with the regular fees with me. Or if you just want to touch base with me first, you can contact me directly. My email is mr.andrew.rod, so Mr. Andrew Rod, @gmail.com. Now, what's really cool is when you go to the Health and Wellness Center, you don't even need to tell them so much why you're coming to counseling. And what's also really great is Nurse Lauren doesn't report to Student Life who's going to counseling and why. She has no record of that stuff. So we do our best to keep things as confidential as possible. The only ones who really know we're coming to counseling are me and Nurse Lauren if students go to her for funds and to get set up. So that's one of the blessings, because for years people were really concerned, well, is Student Life going to find out I'm going to counseling and why, and I'm scared of getting in trouble. It's safe. It's awesome. So that's some background, just some information about what we offer. Now, when I was blessed with doing this whole workshop, I was given 3 dates, and I got real excited, like Dr. Mokoda will tell you. I was like, oh, cool. I'll talk about this day, this day. I'm thinking we're going to be in like this large auditorium and or chapel or something like that, and I was like, oh, cool, I can talk about all this stuff. And then I found out, oh, it's the same lecture 3 different times. So that sort of burst my bubble, so I was like, okay, now I got to make sure we talk about only certain things. So there's a few main points I want us to address and topics to hit on. So when we're talking about fostering mental health, the focus will be on fostering mental health for you, fostering mental health between you and your friends, and fostering mental health within the entire campus community. So when it comes to you, give me some ideas. What might be some reasons why students might come to seek counseling? Yes?
Depression.
Depression, yes. I mean, in general, among just the whole mental health world, depression and anxiety are the 2 big things. And they go hand in hand. They're like buddies. So yes, depression, and there could be, and depression is so broad because there's different types of depression, and there's different potential causes for it. So yes, that's a very general one. What else? Anyone else have any other ideas? Yes.
Struggling with a relationship?
Yes, definitely. I'm constantly being like that sort of middleman, and sometimes it's a little unique because this is a small campus. So I'm not gonna lie to you. There are times when I'm seeing you, and I might be seeing a friend of yours, and sometimes you're talking about the issue with your friend, and I'm meeting with your friend, and they're talking about the issue with you, and I can't reveal that I know anyone. So because I keep your confidentiality, so I don't reveal. Oh, you know what? I am seeing your friend for counseling as well. So it's a small campus. Sometimes that happens. Just one of the weird things. But relationships, gosh, yeah, that's why we're going to get into that part as well in this this workshop. And that could be friendship stuff. It could be family stuff back home. And then life goes on while you're here. It's not like you're totally separated from home. So there could be things that happened right before you left to go to school, and it's really bugging you, and you wish you were back home to deal with that stuff. Or you're home, and then all of a sudden, or you're on campus, and all of a sudden while you're on campus, something crazy happens to your family. Your parents get separated, or someone in your family dies, or who knows what sort of drama. My family was full of drama. We put the fun in dysfunctional. Like that's my life. There's always something going on, and I was like that perfect distance. I'm a good hour and a half away from home, so I could sort of be like, all right, keep me out of it. And other times, if it was something major, I could go back home if I had to. So, dating. Past couple years, I found myself being like a dating coach. You know, I'm doing some counseling. So, hey, guys, dating these days, or finding your mate, finding who your future spouse is, the game has really changed in a lot of ways. And you're trying to navigate that stuff. And like back when I was a student here, this was the problem we had to deal with. I had a friend who swore her start group leader. Do you guys still have start groups? That's okay. So orientation leader. She swore God told her that would be her husband. And nope, yep, he's gonna be my husband. I'm like, all right. Guess what? Not her husband. She's finally getting married now. Someone else. She was able to let go of that one. 12 years later. Alright. Some other things. Trauma is a big one. A lot of times what I'm dealing with are students with some major issues, and what happens is they grow up in an environment where it's so stressful, or they've dealt with some major traumas in their past, but they weren't able to really address those, and now they're here on campus, and it's a relatively safe place, or there's other things happening that trigger things from their past, and people are telling them, yo, you should probably see someone about that. But no one growing up told them that, because that was the norm. You just grew up with it. It was craziness. Now you're around other people from other backgrounds, and like, you know, you might want to, like, talk to someone about some of these things. So, a lot of times there's unaddressed trauma throughout your life that now is starting to manifest while you're a student here. And guess what? Of course it's going to happen because school's stressful. And it's like, which one's going to take the precedence? Your responsibility to school or your mental health? And there's been some students I've worked with who just could not finish school because they just were not emotionally able to stay on task. They could be dealing with something, and then they just emotionally shut down, and then they stop doing their homework. They lock themselves in their room, and next thing you know, it's like they're failing all their classes because of the emotional issues that they still have to address. And sometimes that needs to happen. Sometimes you're not ready for school. Sometimes you need to get a little more healing, and then you're ready for the challenge and demands of school. Unfortunately, that's not a good selling point, but that has happened. I've had one student I think of years ago who had some major PTSD. He was sexually abused his whole life right up until coming to college. And he was in my group, and the shame he dealt with. He couldn't even speak. He would cover his face when he would talk. And he just had one emotional breakdown after another, and he just couldn't come back. It was just, he couldn't handle it. So that happens sometimes. That's not everyone, but that is one of the issues I deal with. Speaking of sexual stuff, I've had a couple cases of sexual assault. A couple girls who have seen me because either something went too far or someone violated them. I've had a couple guys I've seen who were falsely accused of sexual assault. So I've seen both ends of that spectrum. Something the support group I ran for years when I was, back before I was actually the school counselor, it was back when I was a student here. I started up a group and I ran it for 8 years, even after I graduated. And that was for guys dealing with sexual struggles and trauma in their past, and a lot of guys with pornography and sexual addiction. And now, in more recent years, I've been seeing less and less guys coming to counseling for that. Now, you guys tell me, alright, you think that is because all the guys are now sexually pure and have awesome sexual integrity? Or you think so? We just got amazing crops of guys coming in who's like, they don't look at porn at all. They don't care about that stuff. It does nothing for them. I doubt it. Here's my hunch. Here's what I think happened. We got these handy things called smartphones, and you got your own internet on this, and you don't need to worry about using the school's internet, which used to have a block on it. It probably still does. So you can just go on yourself, and you've got so many loopholes. If you want it, you can get it. Whereas in the past, you can go on, you get caught, and then you're like, ooh, yeah, I gotta work on this issue. But now it's out of sight, out of mind. No one brings it up. You're in the clear. But it's not just guys. I'm dealing with girls who come in as well, who are dealing with sexual addiction issues. So there's still a problem, but I think fewer and fewer students are having convictions about it. So I'm seeing less and less students coming to counseling for that. Anyone else? Yes.
Divorce.
Divorce. Yeah. Which really, it's become so commonplace. We don't realize that that is a trauma. So it falls in that category. But yes, the issues related to divorce and growing up in a mixed home or kind of split time between your parents. Those family of origin issues definitely something we address as we do counseling. All right. One more response. Yes.
Students getting really overwhelmed.
Yes. No, that's kind of broad though.
Well, I meant I feel like there's a lot of people that probably struggle with a transition to college and don't really know coping mechanisms and
Yeah. And I think that is true, but surprisingly, I don't get as many clients coming in for that. You would think, yes. So you think, oh, well, people go to counseling because they're stressed with school, and there's overwhelmed with life on campus, and typically that's not, it might be sometimes the presenting issue, the reason why, I think that's why I wanted to go to counseling, but you can dig a little deeper, you find that there's a little more stuff that's underlying there. But yeah, that would be a totally valid reason to come to counseling. So, drug and alcohol issues as well. I've been seeing a spike in that. Used to just be that some guys would just go to the bar down the street and come back wasted. Now we're dealing with marijuana, which it's just a matter of time, I think, before recreational use is legalized. So it's going to be something where you have to make a choice based on your convictions about whether or not you're going to use it. We can't just use the excuse or the rationale that, well, it's illegal, so don't use it. But I'm seeing other things like opiates, even a lot of psychedelics now are growing popular. So I already hinted about this a little bit, but what do you think are some of the ways that some emotional and mental health issues could affect your time here? How can that affect your ability to be a student here? Yeah.
It could keep you from spending time with friends.
Could be, yeah. Can you maybe give me an example? Because I got some that come to my head, but let me see what you got.
So, say you're so stressed or so much stuff on your mind, you don't even think about you don't have time for social life basically.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really, it's hard for you to focus on hanging with other people or doing anything else because you're so wrapped up in your own emotional trauma.
Yeah, that could be. Like I said, sometimes we isolate ourselves. And so you separate yourself from probably the people, if they're good friends, the people that would help in that stress. So that's one. Anyone else? Yes?
You have trouble sleeping.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. What do you guys, alright, shoot this out there for me. How much sleep do you guys get?
4 hours.
4 hours? 5 hours? How much sleep do you need? 8. Probably most of you guys need 8. Especially if you're just coming out of high school. Most adolescents need 8 to 9 hours. So from your teen years until your early 20s, you need about 8 to 9 hours. You're operating on 6, 7 hours. that you could probably skate by, but when you're at 4 hours, like that's crazy. Not that's crazy. So, now, is it because you got so many responsibilities, or is it because you're not structuring your life in such a way that you are making sure you're putting yourself to bed and you're at a good time, you got a regular ritual about when you go to sleep, or is it just life gets crazy and you don't really plan for, oh, I need sleep, or you just look at, well, I got this one class this morning, I'll make sure to get some sleep in that class. So yeah, sleep is important. I can't get into that too much, but we'll keep going here. Another thing that is important to consider: what were the ideas and attitudes about counseling in your family and church growing up? What were some of the messages you heard when it came to counseling and mental health? Yeah, so especially if you came from a Pentecostal background, unfortunately, one of the main attitudes I may encounter is that if you're dealing with something like depression, you just need more faith. You just need to trust God more. If you're dealing with anxiety, don't you know you're supposed to cast your anxieties upon the Lord? And then boom, it'll go away. And that's about as practical as it gets. We sometimes will just throw scripture at it or just say you need more faith. So that's sometimes an attitude that students are coming in and having to sort of, it's sometimes a struggle to actually start counseling, because to them, if you go to counseling, it means you're weak, or you're weak in your faith, and they don't want to admit that that might be the case. So there are plenty of students who probably could benefit from some counseling, but never do because of some of the messages they grew up with. I would say there's a connection, though, between counseling, particularly Christian counseling, and discipleship. My philosophy is I look at counseling as addressing the psychological side of discipleship. To help you grow into the image of Christ and to reflect Him more sometimes requires addressing past wounds, addressing faulty thinking, addressing behavioral patterns that keep getting you stuck in the same rut and the same bad sin, and that keep things that block you from really stepping into God's will for you. And what you find too, if you become a pastor, is one of the main tasks you do is counseling. So it really helps to know this stuff. The other thing is counseling just for problems? No. So the reasons you go to counseling aren't just to deal with an issue, a mental disorder, some sort of problem you're facing, a conflict with people. I'm a big proponent of what they call positive psychology. And that's the idea that counseling is not just for treating problems, but also for improving well-being and help people meet their goals in life as well. So that's why one of the questions I usually have is, what's your vision for yourself? And it's a question that throws some people for a loop. They're like, what do you mean? So they just think, well, I want to get past this problem. I'm like, yeah, but what else? Like, what are the things you want to see happen? Who's the ideal person that you think God is calling you to become? And what are ways that counseling can help you get there? So it's not just about, well, I got this problem I'm facing, I want this to be taken care of, and then I'm good. Well, there's more to it than that, because I'm looking at the way I'm treating the whole person, not just your mental health problem. So when I talk about the whole person, I'm coming from what they call a trichotomist point of view. If you want to be a trichotomist, a dichotomist, that's fine. You can make a biblical case for that, or the trichotomist. The dispute is, okay, what are the components of the person? As believers, we at least are coming from the point of view that we have both an immaterial and a material part of ourselves. So the immaterial could be what you call the soul or the spirit. You can think they're the same thing. Or the trichotomy say you have a soul and a spirit. And then you have a body. So, and it's really difficult to separate them because there's a lot of overlap. And the Hebrew tradition was to view people very holistically. So I don't want to belabor the point too much, but for the sake of argument, where I'm coming from is that you have the spirit, which is your eternal part of yourself, the most immaterial. And you have your body, and your body's actually it's what interacts with the physical world. And your soul is sort of like that interface. So there are three components of the soul. You got your mind, will, and emotions. And it's through those that your spirit and your body interact, I would say. So you say your mind. Your mind has an immaterial aspect, but also without your brain, your physical part, you wouldn't be able to think in a conscious way. We have emotions. Emotions have an immaterial aspect, but your emotions are felt in your body. You have a will. It's partly immaterial. But your will is expressed through your actions you use your body for. Or inaction you don't use your body for. So there's an integration that's through the soul. And the word for soul, going back to the Greek, is psyche. And that's where we get psychology from. So in psychology, we're not just looking at the mind, we're not just looking at mental health, we're also looking at the emotions and the behaviors, so it's sometimes called behavioral health. So we're looking at all of those aspects in psychology. Through a Christian point of view, we get a better understanding of the soul, because how can you understand a human if you don't understand aspects of God, if we're made in His image? And I would also say you can learn a lot about God when you understand things that are really true about humans, since we're made in His image, and the way He portrays Himself is very much as a person. So there's a few areas I just want to touch on where, with each of those aspects of the soul, what might be some areas we want to tackle in counseling. So there's some things to consider, such as core beliefs about yourself and others. And those core beliefs sort of form your grid through which you experience life. Now, most of us, well, anyone really, we form a grid early in life. So you have a childhood grid. Problem is, children, we're like, as kids, we're great recorders of events, but we're not the best interpreter of events. So the way we interpret our experiences and the way we form our grid can be very skewed. So that causes some problems. Another one could be your life vows. Those are commitments that you make at a young age to avoid certain negative experiences. Like, say you might have at a young age been hurt by a best friend, and it's like, I'll never have a best friend again. I'm going to just be casual with people, I'll just have acquaintances, but I'm not going to let a friend get that close to me. And you might not have actually verbalized it, but it's a vow that by your behavior, we see that that's the vow you have. Another thing we look into are cognitive distortions. Now, those are thoughts that cause inaccurate perceptions of reality. Now, my big thing as a counselor is to help people live in reality. Instead of living in denial, or living in a fantasy land, or just avoiding facts and avoiding struggles, but help you guys live in reality. So, what might be some cognitive distortions? What are some thoughts or patterns of thinking that you could have, or someone could have, that would give you an inaccurate perception of an experience or a person? Alright, I'll throw out some. Okay. So, one might be minimization. So, you just get a really good grade on a paper, and you're just like, but that class was easy. You minimize the good thing. Or you're dating some guy, and he regularly calls you fat. And you're just like, well, he's just joking. You minimize the negative thing. And so you're not viewing it accurately. So because it's too painful to admit that he was actually being cruel to you. And, because then that means I might have to put up a boundary. I don't want to put up a boundary. He might not like that boundary I put up. So I'll deal with it. I'll tolerate it. And the way I'll help myself tolerate it is I'll just say, it's not that big a deal. He can call me fat. He can make fun of me. You know what? He can flirt with other girls too. You know, that's fine. I'll handle it. You know? Magnification. So that's where you overplay the importance of something. You just blow it out of proportion. So, gosh, it could be you're in chapel and the power goes out. And you're like, oh, that must have been God. And he wants us to totally stop service and stop classes and just, you blow the big, it's like, it must be a sign from the Lord. It's like, power goes out here every 5 days. If you've been here long enough, you know that. So, justification. That's where you're actively trying to prove your actions or thoughts to be correct. So you can't accept the possibility of being wrong. So you're constantly trying to argue your point. I used to see this all the time among sophomores. Because once you get a little knowledge, freshman year, then you get a little arrogant. Sophomores, you're trying to like always one up each other, especially among us guys, and prove what you know. Labeling, mislabeling. Actually, where you attribute. Pass it down. You attribute someone's actions or their ideas to some arbitrary characteristic. Like we see this all the time in society right now. That, oh, of course as a white straight male you think that, or of course as a woman you would be like that, so we label people, or because of this ethnicity they act like this, and so we label and we can mislabel, and we just, instead of thinking, well, maybe there's circumstances why that person does that, maybe they have some background, maybe actually we're using some choice, and it's not just because of how they grew up, or just because of their skin color or ethnicity that they made these choices. So we can quickly just label, and then we can use that to blame people as well. And that can ultimately end up leading to a lot of division on campus. We can have unrealistic and unreasonable expectations for ourselves. Especially when you're dealing with homework. I taught one semester here, Intro to Psych. And I had this one student, it was a freshman, and you guys probably heard already in orientation that if you got A's in high school, you're going to have to work extra hard to get A's here, right? Please tell me you heard that. Alright, because if not, then someone's slacking. It's like, so, at least it should be. Some of the profs here are kind of lenient, alright? I'm not going to tell you which ones. But you should have to work a little extra harder to get A's in college versus when you're in high school. Now, I had this one student, he was pretty good. He got like a 90-something on his grade, but he didn't get 100% on this one quiz. And he kept coming to me, can I retake that quiz? I'm like, you already got a good grade. Yeah, but I know we could do better. I understand it better now. It's like, what do you need? Now I was like, I know his game. Like, he was stuck. He had this expectation and standard for himself that had to be up here. But his performance was just down here. But it was still good. It was more than passing. But he has to get the A. He has to get 100%. Or what? Or he's not good. You know, whatever message he had growing up, or some belief he acquired, that he has to get perfect grades in order to be acceptable. And so I see that, I just mess with him now. I'm just like, alright, now I'm definitely not going to let you redo that quiz. I'm going to let you like sit in that for a while and learn how to like deal with not being perfect. So. But what happens, if we have these really unrealistic expectations and standards for ourselves, and yet we fall short, that gap, that performance gap, is what causes so much of our stress, our anxiety, low self-worth. And so sometimes it's because we don't believe we can do more, so we stop ourselves from achieving more, but we still have an expectation that we should do more. Other times because we have an unrealistic expectation. And sometimes we just need to lower that and sort of change that gap a bit. Now some of us are actually capable of this much, but we put down our expectations here. And so we don't even excel, we don't do as well as we can because we don't see how capable we are. The will, when it comes to behaviors. So what are some habits and routines that can better structure your life so that you can get the most of your time here? All right, we already talked about sleep. What else? What are some routines you want to have in place to live a healthy life as a student? Yes?
Reading and sticking to a schedule.
Yes, a schedule. Yep. Yeah, I got a student I'm counseling right now who's like, his schedule's a mess. I'm like, alright, next time you come in, we're going to lay out all your tasks and create a schedule because he's just overwhelmed and now he's falling behind his classes. It's crazy. Do you have any of that? Or, okay.
Study, make sure there's like somewhere in your routine for that.
Yes, yeah. They used to tell us that for every credit hour you need 3 hours of study and homework time to do the class well. I don't know how that's possible. Sometimes I'm like, whoa, that's a lot. So, but yeah, you need to set aside time and look at your syllabus in advance. Be like, okay, when are the projects coming up? And let me strategize. Otherwise, they're going to pop out of nowhere. And like, oh, those due? And you end up overwhelming the professor of all these requests to give you an extension, and the professor's just like, again. but they'll be kind. The professors here are real gracious, sometimes too gracious, because when you're in the real world, your boss doesn't always give you an extension on things. So, anyone else? Some ways to structure your life. Are you guys eating 3 meals a day? If you're on the 2 meal a day plan, do you have your own breakfast foods or whatever food? Or are you going out for Wawa runs at midnight and eating something that's totally going to screw with you and give you stomach problems or make you stay up late and so you don't get any sleep? Are you eating the right types of food? It's so important. Your body interacts with your soul in a way as well. So if you're not getting the meals you need, you're going to be cranky. I'm the king of being hangry. So I make sure I have some eggs this morning, because if I don't, by 10 o'clock I'm a grouch and I'm just real prickly. So it's like, you've got to figure out, all right, what do I need in order to approach the day? When are you at your best? Figure out, there's some of us are morning people, some are evening people, some are like afternoon people. So when are you at your best so that you can make sure you're doing your homework at that time? And not, oh, okay, finally, I had all my fun with my buddies. I played Call of Duty Modern Warfare for 3 hours. Now it's 11 o'clock at night. Now let me do my homework. You think you're going to be able to do that assignment? Yeah, right. So structure your life in a way where you can get your stuff done. Addictions are habits that have gotten out of control and they're unhealthy or ungodly. I mentioned before, working with guys with pornography and sexual addiction. Now I'm seeing now more of an issue with people with drug and alcohol addiction. Now, you got to have an actual conviction about these things to keep your body healthy and to keep your mind sober. There's defense mechanisms you have to be aware of. The ways you automatically defend yourself or unconsciously defend yourself from things like pain and shame. When you take Psych 101 and you study Freud, you'll learn more about those. I'm not going to get into those in depth. Then there are coping mechanisms and coping skills. Those are behaviors used to either master, minimize, or tolerate stress or conflict. So, what are some unhealthy coping behaviors students on campus might use? Yes?
Addictions
Yeah, definitely. Yep. I'm under stress, so I'm going to smoke up a joint. I'm going to, who knows? There's so many things you have access to now. And when I use the term addiction, I'm not just talking about chemical addiction, because, to a degree, everything's chemical because it releases dopamine in your brain, and that gets sort of hooked on finding it again. But you can be addicted to not just drugs or alcohol, but pornography, to food, addicted to gambling, to video games. Gosh, when I was a student here, there was you could get a minor, you got your Bible Corps, you got the major you had, and then on top of it, you could get a minor in Halo 2. I didn't know that, but it was true. I had so many friends who were taking that as a minor. So that was the game back then. So yeah, you could get an addiction to avoid all the other responsibilities of life, to avoid this pain, or sometimes just because you got hooked to how good it feels. And you're not even avoiding anything necessarily, you just love how it feels, you're going to keep doing it because you're not disciplined. And no one trained you up in how you're disciplined, and now it's out of control. And so you need more structure, you need more guidance and accountability. Okay, any other unhealthy coping mechanisms? Yes?
Bottling it up.
Oh, yeah.
Not expressing it.
Mm-hmm.
Or to,
Good, bottling it up. Anyone else? What about things like cutting? I'm in a lot of pain, or my life is out. This oftentimes I see what the issue is. Underlying it is my life is out of control. There's so many things in my life that I have no control over, but I can control how I feel pain. I can control this, and to a degree, it brings a little bit of pain relief because when you feel pain in your body, it releases some degree of endorphins. So there's a little bit of a good feeling. So we can get hooked on something that's ultimately harmful for us, but it relieves us of some sort of pain. If we wouldn't do anything that's unhealthy on a regular basis if it didn't work for us somehow. So I see something like cutting happening.
Screaming
Yes.
into the pillows.
Maybe. I mean, that is a coping skill. It may or may not be healthy. So I would say that could be a transitional type of coping skill, because you want to move up from screaming to your pillow to maybe sharing with a friend how you're feeling. Now, emotions. Now, when we talk about emotions, the categories, or the things that fall under that category would be things like your feelings, your motivations, cravings and urges, your moods. And what I find is most people have a difficulty identifying feelings, or as well as just there's a whole lot of baggage people have around feelings. So, you guys tell me, what are some beliefs about feelings that you acquired growing up? And some parts to consider are feelings good? Are feelings bad? Should they be expressed? When you guys said back there, you just bottle things up. You put it down. You just sort of stuff it down. Can you learn anything from your feelings? Are they just arbitrary, or this like annoyances, or can you actually learn something from your emotions? Can you directly control your feelings? So what were some of the messages that you acquired growing up regarding feelings? Or that people might have acquired growing up? It might not have been you personally, but what are some ideas? Yes?
Super common. Girls feel a lot more emotions. They express them. On the flip side, that's a bad thing because they're too emotional, it's too much.
Mm.
And then boys are taught you're not allowed to feel emotion, you're not allowed to express them, you should keep them inside.
Yep.
On the flip side, that's bad because then they have no way of.
Yeah, we got our gender-based stereotypes about emotions. A lot of that is mostly cultural. Yes?
I feel like keep it to yourself and get over it.
Yeah, just get over it. Yep. Kind of goes along with the message you had about counseling issues. Just a lot of problems. I got a student I'm counseling right now who, she grew up, her mom and her stepdad just told her that, people have problems, just deal with it. She grew up with depression and anxiety. Hey, everyone gets depressed sometimes, just get over it. I had a student who was in my group for years ago, and he grew up with this idea that it's a sin to have anger. Like, not just it's a bad thing to sin while angry, but to even have anger was a sin. So that meant he would either deny when he was angry and he wouldn't acknowledge his feelings, or when he was angry and he realized it, he just had this tremendous guilt, and he couldn't process it. He just felt that's false guilt. That's something we shouldn't even feel guilty about. So we can almost think that there's certain emotions that maybe are good and certain emotions that are bad. It's bad to have anger. It's bad to have sadness. It's bad to have shame. And that it's actually a sin if you experience those things. So those are some ideas we end up growing up with. Should they be expressed? Because sometimes we grow up with these rules, and sometimes these rules aren't even spoken, but you can see them enforced in different ways. So if, say, you growing up and you say, I'm mad about this, and you're being told, no, don't be mad about that. You get punished. You get sent to your room because you said you're angry about something. Or if you're sad, someone goes and immediately tries to cheer you up and make you laugh or something, and won't actually let you just be sad. Just say, it's okay. Hey, how are you feeling? Talk about it with me. But no, hey, turn that frown upside down. And what? Why are you so blue? What's the matter with you? What? I didn't even try to rhyme that. That's, so we see a rule enforced that emotions aren't meant to be expressed. We don't talk about feelings. And so we go with the sense that feelings are bad. We're not allowed to talk about them. Or we get to do that, hey, you better straighten out your attitude right now, or you better be happy about it. Or if you're sad, hey, be happy. Don't be sad. And it gives the idea that we can directly control our feelings. Now, emotions, of the three parts of the soul, you got the mind, will, your behaviors, and emotions. The emotions are the tricky one because those are the ones we most want to change. Most people come into counseling because it's their emotions that are causing them problems. They're feeling a certain way that is bothering them. And yet that's the one part of your soul that actually you don't have direct control over. So there's an interplay between the three, your mind, will, and emotions. That your emotions, it depends on where you're starting at. So your mind, you can choose your thoughts. You can, at least, you have some degree of direct control. You can get some thoughts that you didn't ask for, but you do have a bit of a choice in what you do with those thoughts. And you can choose new beliefs and new thought patterns. It may take some discipline, but you can do those things. And you can choose new behaviors. And you can break certain habits, and you can reinforce positive and healthy habits and healthy ways of meeting your basic needs. And as you do those, that has an impact on your emotions. When you connect with someone, that's so important, because there's like, we're not just a soul, like in the middle of nowhere. We're a soul interacting with other souls. And so, this couldn't be expressed in that diagram, but there's a social aspect to who we are that is so important. And it's when you experience reality with someone who can affirm reality with you, and be like, oh, so what I'm feeling makes sense? Oh, okay. That has a huge impact on our feelings as well. Another thing I find is most people struggle with identifying feelings. Alright, so I'm going to give you some examples, and you tell me if that's a feeling. Okay. I feel some type of way. I don't know, I've been hearing this the past few years, and I'm like, what the heck does that mean? I feel some type of way. Have we lost our ability to identify feelings? Alright, I feel some type of way. What is that? Does that mean anything?
No.
No. I feel like you think I'm stupid. Is that a feeling?
No.
Yes, the word, we oftentimes will replace the word feel, or the word think with feel. So it's really, I think that you think I'm stupid. That's a thought, it's a belief. You're assigning some sort of analysis to someone else's actions and their attitude toward you. That's not feeling. I feel like I want to die. Is that a feeling or a thought?
Depends on the tone.
Well, you can maybe find the feeling through that. So if you're like really in tune and present with the person, you can get to the feeling. But the statement itself is not an expression of a feeling. It's an expression of a desire or a thought. But you can get to that and be like, are you feeling hopeless right now? Are you feeling helpless? Is that the feeling that's underlying that desire? I'm feeling really down. Feeling? Yes, it's like a colloquialism for saying you're sad, you're discouraged. So that one works. I'm mad. Feeling? Yes. So I got a handout as well that goes into stuff. Now, don't make fun of it because it looks kind of kiddish, but I'm a therapist and also a cartoonist. So I made a handout for my teenage clients to help them identify and understand feelings, what their purposes are. So, so enjoy that one. Now it's usually like a tri-fold brochure. I didn't have time to fold them, so you guys enjoy that. All right. So there's two main purposes for feelings. First is they communicate. My working definition of an emotion or a feeling is that it's an embodied indicator of your assessment of your experiences. So you got your senses coming in, they're feeding information to you, you're in sometimes just a split second, you're processing what you're experiencing and encoding it with an emotion, and that emotion is felt throughout your body. Now sometimes it's very low level, so sometimes it's difficult for people to identify what they're feeling, because it's sort of low level. Other times it's more intense, so it's easier to figure out, what is the feeling? And the way we feel in one circumstance can be the same way we feel in another circumstance if it has the same level of emotional impact. Okay, so here's going to be an extreme example, but it'll make sense. So if you're in the woods and a bear comes running at you, that's the experience. You're taking it in with your senses, with your sights and everything else, and your brain your amygdala will be the one in this situation that codes it as dangerous. All right, in just a split second. And you're going to feel something that's either going to cause you to have usually one of three reactions. Does anybody know what they are? You guys know where I'm going with this? Fight, flight, or freeze. Okay? And so you're making an assessment of the situation. Your needs, your rights and boundaries, your relationships to others. So, the bear's coming at me, I'm assessing my needs. Well, I kind of need to live. I kind of want to live. I want to live a little longer. I have rights. I kind of have a right to fight for my life. I have boundaries. This bear is encroaching on my personal space. Okay, it's kind of violating my space here. My relationship to others. Well, if this bear kills me, I won't get married, or I won't be able to be with my mom and dad anymore. So it's going to violate my relationship with my others in my life. And so we're making a quick assessment as well as an assessment of our ability to meet those needs. The second thing emotions do is they motivate. They move you to do something about the state of your needs, your wants, your goals, and rights. So if I feel like, okay, this is a threat to my needs and my wants, and I have the ability to fight this threat, I'll get the fight. And so what happens, my body will give me extra adrenaline, it'll start, like, my muscles will tighten, I'll get some more energy, my brain will tell my body to stop worrying about digestion. If you gotta pee right now, it's like, don't worry about it, we're gonna fight this bear, okay? Or if I assess that I don't have the ability to fight this bear, but I can run away, then I'll flee, and I'll use all that energy to get out of the situation. Or, if we're so overwhelmed by the situation and we don't have the ability to fight or flee, then we could freeze, because we're just overwhelmed, I don't feel like I can do anything. So take the bear analogy, and that can be school sometimes. That could be all the homework you have, and you don't think you have the ability to conquer that challenge. And so you try to run away from the challenge. Or if like, I can't even run away from it, I got too much going on, we freeze. And sometimes I see with some of my students, they'll go in their room and shut themselves out, and they just stop doing anything. They stop reaching out to help, they don't contact the professor for some help, they don't ask their friends for help, and they shut down. It's like the freeze. So our bodies are designed to communicate these emotions, whether it's something actually life-threatening like a bear, or other things that just cause emotional stress. So you can react, and it's like you're experiencing something dangerous, even though it's not something life-threatening. So, extreme example, but it helps figure some things out. So that's some of the basic stuff about when it comes to fostering mental health for yourself, is growing an awareness of your thought life, your self-talk, your grid through which you're seeing the world, your coping skills, your emotions, your behaviors. Are you meeting your needs in healthy ways? But I want to move on to say fostering mental health between you and your friends. Okay? Because maybe you're the most well-adjusted person in the world, and this is all, psh, I got this. I'm going to urge you not to just think of yourself. But God put you on this campus where you could do just online school, and you could live like a hermit and get your degree, but you're on campus, you're with people, whether you like them or not. And so you're going to run into things like conflict resolution that you'll need to work through things like conflict resolution. With friends, you'll want to know how to help them validate their emotions, or be the person that validates their emotions. And you want to be the person that, or at least I'm going to implore you to desire to be the person that others will go to for safe help, for support. When I used to run that group on campus for guys, one of those common problems they would run into is finding other guys on campus that could be their accountability partner. So I'll get into that real quick here at the end there. So conflict resolution. Now there's a few things, most of the time we want to just move on. We want to alright, we got a bit of a fight. Guys, we usually like to just brush it off and move on pretty quickly. Girls tend to be more willing to cut off or get back, so we tend to fight more relationally as girls. So there are some trends there. Well, one thing, especially as believers, we want to get to is reconciliation. And guys, sometimes in trying to brush things off, we don't actually work through the process of reconciliation. We'll just sort of say, oh, we're good, but we don't actually work through any issues. So it actually could increase the conflict. So there's a few things that must happen before you get to the point of actual reconciliation. And that is, there needs to be actual conviction. One, for the person who has been wronged, that there's conviction that, okay, this is correct, this is reality. I have been hurt in this way. And conviction for the person who has done the wrong, that they actually have gotten to the point of realizing, you know what, I was wrong. And they're willing to confess it, and willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. And once you get to that, then they can work through repentance. And before you just go like, all right, cool, now we're good again, depends on the type of grievance or wound that there is in a relationship. Okay, some things you can work through easily. Other things you need to give it more space. Like, okay, I need to observe trustworthy behavior over time. And then as that happens, forgiveness, at least the emotional aspect of forgiveness can become possible. The volitional part of forgiveness, the choice to forgive, can happen earlier. But the emotional aspect of forgiveness happens as you begin to build trust again. And then that'll lead to true reconciliation. So there's sort of a process to go through in that area. And there's a couple tools to help us through that process. That is to confront people through compassionate communication. So another handout. And there's, I don't try to go into this in depth, but there's two main keys to this. If you're the one who needs to share your feelings with someone else and share the grievance, your task is to share honestly. And the key part of that is to stick to the facts. What is the thing that actually is happening? I use the example here of a pretty common argument I might have with my wife. And that'll be where we're talking, and see, I grew up in a home where you weren't allowed your 2 cents, you had to fight to put your 2 cents into a discussion. So, you know, we're a bunch of Puerto Ricans, and we just talk over each other, and we're loud, and so you want to be heard, you got to interject. There's a little opening. Now my wife, she'll take her time when speaking, and if I jump in, she'll get offended. And so, common argument is, you interrupted me. And I'm like, well, no I didn't, I thought I was an opening right there. Or sometimes I literally do open. Sometimes I do interrupt, but I'm just thinking, well, she can bounce back from that, but she'll lose her train of thought. And it really bothers her when that happens. So, the example there is, point to the thing that's actually happening. Because once you get an agreement on the facts, it gets real easy from there. So you don't go jump into an accusation of what the person's doing and how, oh, you're trying to make me feel small. Like now you're trying to assume the person's motives. When you start going down that path, the person who's receiving what you're saying is going to respond with what?
Defensive.
Yes. So we want to, by sharing honestly, we want to avoid people getting defensive. You want to identify your feeling. Remember, the feelings. That's why we went over that earlier. So what's the actual emotion that you're experiencing? And then you connect that emotion to your needs, your wants, your goals, your desires. So then you can have, once you can see the person is tracking with you, then you can have requests to help you in that area in a healthy way. And if you're the one hearing, you want to do your best to listen without getting defensive, without justifying yourself, without explaining yourself all the time, or minimizing their emotions. But you want to validate the emotions. I'll get to that in a moment. Another part of conflict resolution is sometimes confrontation just won't work. And so sometimes you have to move into boundaries, and sometimes you have to change the boundaries in that relationship. And you have to be willing to enforce those boundaries and have consequences if a person persistently violates the boundaries. And you also have to be aware of, okay, what am I responsible for? What am I not responsible for? I had this one girl I was counseling who, she was so scared to tell the truth to someone and risk offending that person. And so she lied about something, about her reasons for doing something, and the guy ended up getting offended. And because she was trying to control how the person would feel. And she had to realize, hey, how he feels is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to be honest with him, and share in a way that is not hurtful, but you need to be truthful. And that's your responsibility. That's within your realm of capability to handle. His realm is how he handles that. Another aspect of boundaries is, how do you decide who gets close and who has influence in your life? Some people don't have boundaries. They let almost anyone get close to them. Some people have a big wall and no gate, and so they don't let anyone in, and they protect themselves. Now, emotional validation. So why we went into emotions so much is because when you have someone in your life who is going through anything, you want, probably one of the biggest steps, biggest things you can do to help them is simply validate how they're feeling. that almost takes care of like half the battle right there. So, as a friend, when someone is sharing something with you, you want to be present. You want to be attentive to what they're sharing. And you want to, even if they're giving you a bunch of facts and a whole bunch of, like a long story, you want to try to get through that and identify what the feeling is. Even if like, well, their rationale, their way of thinking is skewed, and you don't tackle the thoughts. Get to the feeling. Once you identify the feeling, that helps the person feel understood. And so you want to demonstrate that you understand where they're coming from. Now, to demonstrate understanding doesn't mean that you have to agree with the rationale that led to their point of view or the rationale that led to the feeling that they're experiencing. Sometimes we get kind of antsy like, well, if I validate how they're feeling, then that'll encourage the feeling. I don't want to do that. Or that'll encourage that weird way of thinking that they have, or that cognitive distortion. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do anything to encourage it. So we'll minimize or we'll change the subject. But actually, they'll actually continue in that way of thought until they get the validation. Sometimes not until we get the sense that we're understood, that now we can sort of step back and start examining it more. So it's okay to validate and confirm. I understand that you feel that way. It's just simply acknowledging that you understand what it is they're feeling. And you don't rush to change what they're feeling. Just show that you can handle hearing their feeling. And you can handle them expressing what they feel. It's so important. That'll help your friendships and your marriages so much when you learn this skill. It's a difficult skill because most of us don't grow up with this skill. So it's like a new language to learn. And you want to be a good support system. So if you have friends who want to make a change in their life, or they're working through a healing process, maybe because of trauma from their life, maybe they have an addiction, maybe they're just working to grow into maturity, you want to be a friend that they will actually want to go to for support. So to be that type of friend, you want to be someone who is open and genuine. So you're genuine with them about your own stuff. When I led that group for years, I never asked the guys in my group to answer a question I wasn't willing to answer as well. Now, when it came to different struggles or experiences from their childhood, like if I sensed the guys were too scared to start the conversation, I'll share for myself. And it wasn't for me to heal. It was for me to be an example as well. So you want to be someone who, if you want people to enter in and let you in, you need to be open as well. There's a principle of reciprocity when it comes to disclosure. You want to be someone who's trustworthy with confidences and ask the tough questions. And you want to encourage, not condemn, so that they'll feel safe to keep sharing more with you. And you don't minimize, you don't give them a distorted view of reality. You don't just be like, oh, it's okay. No, give them the truth. They know that what they did was wrong, if that's the situation. So give them the truth, but encourage them to keep coming to the Lord with it. And as far as the rest of campus, we want to make sure there's a campus in which we build resilience and anti-fragility. Even in a Christian campus, even one that's mostly Assemblies of God, there's still going to be people from different backgrounds, some different denominations, some people who maybe aren't really Christians, and different political points of view. And it's through some of those difficulties that we can develop strength. And we don't want to shelter ourselves from any conflict, but we want to learn how to work through them and negotiate and listen to people. And expose yourself and engage with different people. Don't just stay with, well, these people remind me of the people I grew up with back home. I'll stick with these people. Like when I was a student here, I had like 4 different groups of friends. And when I was a student, my first semester, I was like, I don't know anyone. And I wasn't AG, so I didn't know people from fine arts and stuff like that. So I was just like, every meal I'll sit with different people. And I got to meet different, and I went to student center and just played pool with different people. And I tried to broaden my experience. So get outside yourself some and try to reach across aisles. Reach out to others who are in need. If you see that person who's always eating by themselves, go to them. Sit with them. Include them in your group. Look outside yourself in your group and see who else needs to belong. All right, you guys were actually really good. Thank you so much. Thank you.